Hi, welcome to Music for the Soul podcast, where we talk honestly about difficult things. This is a place where music, hope, and healing come together. I'm Becky Nordquist.
And I'm Steve Seiler. We're going to have fun today because we have one of the most creative people I know with us. I can't wait to get into talking about that with her. Welcome to Belinda Smith.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
About, maybe 10 years ago, because Henry was still living with us, my son. We were doing a Write About Jesus event in Nashville, which we had never done before. So I wanted one of my kids to experience it, and Henry came. And the class he wanted to take was yours. And I don't know if you remember what you did in that class, but it was a creative exercise for songwriters that I have used several times through the years, always to great effect. Whenever I do a seminar where I'm writing a song with a group of people who are aspiring songwriters of all skill levels, you'll recognize this, Belinda. What I do is I say, okay, we're going to set the stopwatch for 1 minute, and you're going to pick up your pencil or your pen, and you're going to start writing, and you're not going to stop until the minute is up. And I just want you to write whatever ideas come to mind. We're going to just write a page of titles, no editing, whatever comes out that pen, just keep on writing. And I remember when you did that at Write About Jesus, I participated, and I came away with probably almost 30 titles in a minute. And I wound up writing like half a dozen of them. And, and I thought, well, now that's very handy for those days when nothing's coming. And so I have done that several times. And every single time I've done it, I've had an embarrassment of riches to choose from title-wise. We've always gotten a song done. So tell us about how you came to that, and, just start talking about your creative process, because it's just so amazing.
I love embarrassment of riches. It actually came about from, I don't know the name was Sheila Davis, and she does a lot of like teaching people how to write. And then it combined with my brother, who is a college professor. And so sort of in putting all those things together, the point of it is especially when you're in a larger group situation, when you're like, listen, we have to have some titles. So there are two different ways to do it. And I don't remember which way worked for you, but I either put you in this imaginary room with it all whiteboard, and I say, here are the 3 words. You have to have these 3 words, 1, 2, or 3 in combination. So use all the, so I like to use the word Mustang just because it amuses me. Maybe blue, maybe love, or something random. And then you can write that way. Or you can do it with no structure, just here. Just look up at the whiteboard of the wall. Tell me what you see. Tell me what you see. And so it's interesting because people, different brains work different ways. So we can find that both ways. The other trick, I don't want to say trick. Well, we'll say it because that's more fun. So this whole entire thing is that you cannot stop writing, because if you stop writing, we have so many editors in our brains, and even more so than we were doing that Write About Jesus in Nashville. It's like you want to say, am I being politically incorrect? Wait, within that, am I being more politically correct? Wait, did I spell that right? Wait, is it grammatically correct? There's so many editors that catch up in a split second. So that is the key. Do not stop writing whatsoever. I will add that I am up to 10 minutes a week. So, but I only do one for 10 minutes. Okay. So the first turned out like it's an embarrassment of riches. Then the middle part is like an embarrassment of horror. And toward the end becomes an embarrassment of beautiful, great. So that's just where I'm at now. But I find it just an imperative, it's imperative for me to use that.
Well, we used the 3-word system.
Okay, that was your favorite.
Yeah, I think so, because then even if you try to start or edit or feel uncreative, if you got those words, you can just write that word and write something at the end of it, and I just found that just blew the door off. So anyway, that's neat to hear how it came about, and there are different ways to do it. But if any writers out there, I encourage them to try it. And I don't care if you're a songwriter or a poet or a novelist or a short story writer or a teacher, this might create a breakthrough for you. So really recommend that people try that. Have you ever done anything like that, Becky?
That sounds amazing. I've never done that particularly that way, but something similar where it's just it almost comes out kind of word salad-y, like just going and going and going and going. I've never structured like into, I'm going to write for 1 minute and not stop. And the part that you mentioned about those inner voices, that editor inside of us, it holds us back so much too. I mean, and you can see that early on, even working with my young kids, at how that begins at a very young age, and it kind of blocks your creativity and your expressiveness. So I'm going to give this, I jotted it all down right now. I'm going to do these. I'm going to try the 3-word thing. That sounds really fun. And I might try it with my kids because they both are very creative souls. So we'll see how they do with it too. But I really like that. So Belinda, I got to ask, how did you get into songwriting? Like, how old were you? What's your journey been like?
Yeah, I grew up in a fundamentalist tiny church in the state of West Virginia. My grandfather was the preacher. And honestly, we were there every time the door was open and probably a little more when we had to go clean it. I was so bored by the time I got to high school. We were not, just honestly, we're not allowed to, bring toys. We just had paper and pen and the Bible. And so in order to work through that, I started trying to make stuff up according to my grandpa's sermons because I was so bored. And, I was a little brat, kid. And so that's where it started. And so I would make stuff up, and I sat in the 7th row because that was the back row, and that's where all the cool kids sat, which would be 4 of us. Yeah, I started there. I would try to make up songs based on his sermons, and then later I would sing them. And the way I knew that I had a good song, my grandpa would always have his Bible open, getting ready for the sermon. He was always being right before that. And if he closed his Bible and set it down on the pew and started paying attention, I was like, I got one. And so this trial by fire. But yeah, I just kept doing it. I had no idea at that point that you could make money as a songwriter, that could be your vocation. And I just kind of kept going, and it's just relationship after relationship. And so that's pretty much how I've ended up here on the Music for the Soul podcast.
Well, we met, I believe, at Write About Jesus, not at the Nashville one, but one of the ones in the Wayback Machine. And I got to tell you, your singing voice has always moved me. I mean, you're just really talented. And I was always intimidated because it seemed like they did this concert on Friday nights where you have to sing one of your songs for the collected students at the seminar. And invariably, my slot would be after you. And I would think, okay, what's going on here? She sings like an angel and I sing like a wounded cow. What is happening here? Because invariably, I mean, you write the songs and I write them for other people to sing. So I never know them in my key, So, I mean, it was always a stressful thing. And then you just exacerbated that with this glorious voice. So
I'm humbled and sorry.
Thank you, I think.
Do you remember the time I had a song called Table Across Time that I had written, and it was about the saints that have gone before. And I had this long list of the saints, and I thought, well, what I'll do is I'll have Tony Wood read names of the saints while I play the chorus. And so I'm playing the song and Tony's reading the names, and it's all very serious and reverent. And when we finish, you raise your hand and say, well, I think I like the song, but it's hard to tell because Tony kept talking over it. That was a classic moment for me.
I am so smart. I love you.
Oh, man.
It's so good.
Very memorable. Very memorable. And now I can't do the song anywhere without thinking, is Belinda here? Well, can't do this if Belinda's here.
That's great. Oh my gosh. Was that at Write About Jesus too?
Yeah, sure was. Sure was.
Girl, you are my people. You are my
fairness. Sorry. In fairness, though, it's like, there's 3 of us sitting up on the stage or something, and then one person is singing. So like I'm next, and you're sort of transitioning to your own song. So if you haven't been able to figure out yet, I have a very dry sense of humor, and the joke was wide open. So
when the door opens, what are you going to do? The door swings open. You got to walk through. It's kind of unkind to that too.
And I live with somebody who made their living as a sitcom writer, so I can take the heat. Yeah.
You've been conditioned well.
Yeah.
So you guys have you guys done co-writing or at all together? Have you guys ever co-written together?
No.
You two?
I don't think we have.
So, but you've done a lot of co-writes, right? So what would you say? Because I love coming at our conversations with songwriters from the perspective of people that are getting into it or interested and learning about songwriting too. And I love to get the take of, what do you think makes a good co-writer?
But first off, when I started co-writing, I wanted to vomit. So I would go in and I would write the entire song before I got there. And then like I would try to lead it to, I was just afraid of not saying the right thing. And
Mm.
so finally people caught on to what I was doing. They're like, can you just tell me what you wrote? I was like, just put my name on it. But that was a way to keep myself calm. What I've learned since then is really whatever you have to do to make sure that you feel safe in that co-writing situation, that's part of what you need to do. For me, it's also looking for somebody that's sort of like not on my level, like musically, sort of just on my level in towards or humans, that sort of connection. And really, when you find those two things, and like say you're an aspiring writer, and you're like, I met this person, and I think I like them. Well, okay, see if they want to co-write. It's always, and I don't remember who started saying it, but it's like you come in as a freshman and you have no idea what you're doing. You're just trying to fit in and be cool and maybe be seen or maybe not. Then you move to the sophomore class, then junior, then senior. And so you're coming in with the freshman class. And so you need to get your bearings right there, sort of figure out what's going on. And then at the next point, it's kind of like when you go to the sophomore. So that kind of helps people sort of navigate like, oh, I don't come in as a senior. I get to start and learn and learn and learn, because the truth is you don't know what you don't know.
Right. Absolutely. And that being with people that are further down the road also helps you grow a lot, and you can learn a lot, and holding everything loosely is key in the co-writing for sure. Right.
Right.
When you asked if we'd ever co-written, the answer is no, but there is this. I had a dream about Belinda, and I think it was sort of the invitation to a co-write. And it may seem a little awkward at first, but hang with me, because I think there's an analysis to this.
Mm-hmm.
I was in the bathtub. Okay, that's the awkward part. and Belinda, you came in and handed me a baby and turned around and walked out of the room. And I've been meaning to tell you about this dream for years, just never got around to it. So I thought I'd do it publicly on like a show where a lot of people can think it's strange. But my analysis of it was kind of like, well, good songwriting is all about vulnerability. And that's a pretty vulnerable situation. And it's also, I felt like, okay, I'm being trusted with this baby, and songs are our babies. And I thought, oh, in that dream, she's trusting me with an idea.
That's beautiful.
I still don't know what the idea is. So maybe after the show, we can get together and you can tell me what it was and we can write it finally.
Yeah. You know what? I'll just write it for you, and then you can ask me what I wrote.
There you go. You feel safe. He's not feeling vulnerable because he's not in a bubble bath. Please tell me it was a bubble bath.
Right.
Anyway. So, imagery of the artist's brain. Anyway.
Pull it together, girl.
Oh,
Becky,
man.
this is why we can't have nice things.
There it is. There it is. Right there. Told you were my people. You are my people. Oh, I just had a question. I totally lost it. It wasn't about bubble baths or babies. So you mentioned feeling like you were going to throw up, because often when you enter into situations, especially when you're new to things, or maybe you've written a lot by yourself, but co-writing can be really intense the first time you do it. And that concern of being kind of out of your league was that the nerves that were brought on for you? And how did you ever eventually, or do you still have that nerve when you go into a co-write with people, or did you overcome that? What was your process in getting beyond that space to just getting in the room and doing your thing?
For me, I had to do it. I'm trying to think if I did it for a year and a half or 2 years, but a lot of that was because I'd never done it. I was so afraid that people were going to think I was not good enough. That was the whole thing. It didn't really, people were, she doesn't know. She didn't have a line. She couldn't contribute. Like, why am I sitting in this room with her? It was a lot more. That was sort of the sickening part. Is I just wanted to measure up, and I didn't want to waste anyone's time. As time has gone on, I have sort of learned kind of how to navigate that. Sometimes, though, in terms of just being respectful of my co-writer's time and talent, I do try to go in with ideas. Maybe I'll have a chorus. Maybe I'll have part of the verse. And a lot of times the songs will come out of the conversation that happens before the song is written. Yeah. So I can come in with a whole, encyclopedia. I don't think we have encyclopedias anymore, but that's something we used to have back in the old days.
Yeah.
But we just, it's just like, well, you talked about this. Wait, I have this. And so I could have all those books of ideas. If something goes to that, great. If not, there's always something in my experience, if something good comes out of the conversation. And also, I will say, if I'm writing with someone that I don't know, I have to get to know them in the first few minutes. I have to. Everybody else doesn't. I mean, some people do, some people don't, but I need to know your heart, your brain, where are you going, what are you dealing with? It's kind of like a quiz. It's the Belinda Smith quiz. But I have to do that for me to feel comfortable. And then after that, I'm pretty much okay. Do you do that, Steve?
I've always found that unless you strike up at least a little bit of a friendship, it's going to be really hard to just go bang, let's go. So a lot of times if I knew I was going to write with somebody the first time, I'd say, let's meet for lunch, let's meet for coffee, and then we can go right afterwards. Because then you're not in that space where you should be creating. You should be having lunch and talking and visiting and asking about each other's families and that sort of thing. And I find that then you find that common ground place. And I completely agree with you that great songs usually spring forth from honest conversation, from sharing. So,
oh yeah, some of the best ideas are just phrases that you hear sometimes, even you're not even in the conversation yourself. You're just overhearing a really good conversation. Not that I do that ever. So I wonder, because I mean, I've had some experiences, but nothing near you two. So I have to ask too, do you find that there are just some personalities and writers that you jive with and are cohesive with when you write more so than others? Do you think that's often a personality thing, or you're just the same place in life, or what do you think that is? Because I know I definitely have felt more comfortable with some people than other people when I've written.
So pretty much, and I know we hear this all the time, but songwriting is like dating. It really is. There are going to be some people that honestly you just want to hit with your imaginary common sense stick. It's like, oh my gosh.
So good.
And then other times you're just like, I have the best day. We are like on each other's level. But yeah, the people who I have found at my point who are the most difficult to write with are the people who refuse to let their idea grow. The people who insist on it having to be one way. And that means I'm more of a guest in the room than I am a co-writer. I don't like to be a guest if I'm in a co-writing situation. Not right now.
I think one of the things that I think informs that, one of the things I always do with any new co-writer is say going in, if we write something together today, it's 50-50. We're not going to count lines. We're not going to say, oh, you wrote this part and I wrote that part. If it's three people, it's 33, 33, 33, because then everybody's free to throw in ideas, and whatever sticks and whatever doesn't. But what writers need to learn is, I may say something that's like incredibly stupid that doesn't wind up in the song, but is the spark that makes you think of the great line that did wind up in the song. So anytime I would meet a writer and he would say, well, I wrote this and that, I get 75%. I'd say, in my head, I never write with this person again, because their spirit isn't in the right place, as far as I'm concerned. So if songwriting has to be a generous process, and we give and we take and we bless each other with each other's good ideas, and we amuse each other with each other's horrible ideas. And at the end, you come out with this pie that you've baked, and it works. So
I love that. I love the thought of everyone coming to the table. And I know we've probably said this in a podcast before on songwriting, but just that kind of reflection of the body of Christ, where when you're willing to live open-handed with it all, and everybody comes and they bring their own thing to the feast. And when you're willing to sample their side dish, if you will, it just becomes that much richer. And that may have been one of the dumbest analogies I have ever said. I might be hungry. I don't know. I'm not sure where the feast thing came from.
Well, I was really touched recently, Belinda, when I found out that a song called "I Wasn't There" of Music for the Souls was one of your favorites, and I would love to hear how you arrived at that opinion, because that's a song that's pretty close to my heart.
Well, I don't know when your listeners will be listening to this episode, but I can say, and I think we were talking before the show, that the topic of abortion is probably not going to leave the collective conversation, at least forever. But it's very prevalent right now as especially I think on television, they show us the extremes. They don't really, there's not a lot of information or interest in the people in the middle, it seems, the extremes. And you have all these people, yelling murderer, and these people are like, no, and then fetus, and then no, it's a life. I mean, screaming at each other. I am not exaggerating. They're in the streets. And especially through this last season, I have been thinking so much about the women who've already done it. So they're at home going, I can't undo this. I can't undo this. And you're standing there with a poster that calls me a murderer. Well, did I? What else are we bringing up? And I just thought, as part of the body of Christ, I'm not sure that that's the good look. I'm not in charge of what those people do. I'm not in charge of how they do it. But I don't see love in that. I don't see murder. A murderer just is in my head because I've seen like 3 of those poster boards in the last few days. So thought about that. And it was interesting as it started to come up, and this song is where it started. I always had pictured abortion in terms of women without anybody. I've never pictured, which is so frustrating because men have such a responsibility. Men have responsibility in this too. But it was just the women, the woman, the women, the women. Like, how dare you have an abortion? Who do you think you are? What a tramp or whatever you are, murderer. And literally, it had never crossed my mind that the man could own up to his part, ever. So when I went back and listened to this, CD is what I have, but I listened to it on Spotify. It just hit me so hard that this is not just a thing with women. This is a thing about the men too. And when I pictured a man actually coming to the person and saying, I wasn't there. I had responsibilities. I had responsibilities that I wanted to for you and the child. And I just big fat wasn't there. I just said big fat, but I'm going to stay with it. So for me to hear that, that's just a whole new level of what we're missing, what the body of Christ is missing. That blew my mind.
Let's play a little bit of that song right now since we've been talking about it.
A man protects, a man provides, a man stands tall and does what's right. That's why I feel this guilt inside. I can't seem to look you in the eye. You needed me, our child did too, and it's painful to admit the truth. I wasn't there for you. I wasn't there for you.
When we started working on this project, or on any project that we do, my goal is always to touch on as much of the spectrum of it as we possibly can. We don't want to leave anybody out of the story. And one of the consultants, his name's Greg Haase, that I spoke to about this is a primary part of his ministry, is counseling men who have gone down this road. And he said, whatever you do, don't leave the men out. And he came to me and shared some stuff. He said, because he knew I'd done the Somebody's Daughter project for people who struggled with pornography. And he said, I counseled both men who've had pornography issues and men who've been party to an abortion. He said, I can tell you that the struggle with shame, with abortion, is actually even worse. He said, I've never had a man look me in the eye while they confess this. They always look at the ground. So I wasn't there, grew out of that conversation with him because he was able to share with me how deeply wounded so many men were by that experience.
I just think a lot of people, and I see myself included, I know people who've had an abortion, and just in knowing them and seeing all that, but we always forget about the man. It's always, you see the women. You always see the women. Every now and then you'll see a supportive husband, and it would be more about medical parts. But when it comes, you always see a woman against a man. Never occurred to me that the man would be in it too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They are. So it's so interesting that you said that.
Yeah, and I think it can go both ways where they just, for whatever reason, they weren't there because they couldn't deal with it or didn't want to or whatever. But there's also the side, I was a teenage pregnancy and I remember it was a very difficult decision. No one should ever be in that position anyway. But I remember a young man, we were seniors, and he came up to me in the hallway and he just touched my arm. He said, Becky, I just want to say thanks for having your baby. And I was like, that's weird for a 17-year-old kid to say. And he's like, my girlfriend was pregnant and I didn't have a choice. She had an abortion before I even knew that she was pregnant. So he never got the chance and he was tearing up. This is a 17-year-old kid with tears in his eyes. And, I think about him today and I just hope that he's gotten healing. But there's that side of it too, where that child is half his and he had zero say on whether it lived or died. And that's hard too. And this conversation is so important. I love how you phrased some things as far as the church and how we're talking about the topic and how we're dealing with it and those signs. It's just like, if you haven't walked that road, please be quiet. You don't understand the depth of pain. You need to see what's going on for that girl that's walking up that sidewalk. You have no idea what she's facing right now. And how much better and how much more Christ-like would it be for us to walk up alongside them and love them in that moment and show them the love of Christ, and instead of throwing stones at them of angry, condemning words. I don't think that gets the response that we want, really, truly. And it's about her heart and her soul too. I mean, as someone who also has a single mom in my family, there's that other piece. Like, it seems like we have this thing of, yay, you chose life. Okay, bye. I mean, then they leave. They don't offer anything after that life has been saved, as they say, or that life has been saved from an abortion. And then those women are just left to figure out how they're going to provide for these kids, daycare, food, insurance. I mean, there's a lot that goes with being pro-life for your baby. And it's a journey. And it's just don't jump off the cliff just because you got the baby born. There's a long responsibility after that. And then the third part is just that place where we go, when we talk like that, we are totally unaware of how many people are sitting right next to us in church who have walked that road, and they're sitting there feeling guilt and shame, and they are afraid to even let on that was part of their life because of the condemnation.
And that's why we called the project Mercy Great Enough. Because the
Yeah.
idea is, my feeling has always been either Jesus is big enough for this issue or he's not big enough for any of them.
Right.
And I first came to that thinking when we were doing Somebody's Daughter, because the men I met felt like they'd done something unforgivable. Well, with Christ, what is unforgivable? So, and by the way, there's a number attached to what you just asked, Becky. The stat that I heard from professionals in the field is 1 out of every 3 Christians in the pew has experienced an abortion already. So, Belinda, absolutely, we need to be talking about it and asking the men how they feel, and standing alongside both men and women. Thanks for sharing about how you feel about that song, Belinda. That's one of 13 songs on the Mercy Great Enough project.
Yeah. And Scott sings it, right? Scott Crepane.
Scott Crepane sings it.
Yeah.
If you want a song to touch somebody's heart.
No doubt. So you mentioned getting into songwriting, and I loved hearing about you sitting in church because, I mean, you can only count the pews so many times, or count how many people are wearing hats and how many men are in suits. I'm a pastor's kid, if you couldn't tell. How did you get to a point where you were doing this for a living?
When it all started, I had no idea. I think I'd said that. I had no idea how that you could even write songs and do things. But
Right.
I had a little group and we traveled. I'm from the state of West Virginia. We would travel West Virginia, Ohio, Kentucky, those places. So when we got to North Carolina, we thought we were famous. And so as it went, I started to pay attention to the names in parentheses underneath the liner notes. Like, who's that? It would be parentheses, italic, and then let's say BMI or something. The parentheses, to me, that was the goal. And as I kept doing that, one of the guys that I knew from being on the road, he got a publishing deal here in Nashville, and finally got up the nerve. I asked him to pass on some songs to his publisher, and that had to be early summer. His publisher called me out of the blue in December and wanted to work with me. But we ended up doing sort of a, where I would give him one song. If he wanted to take it, great. If not, he didn't. So we did that for a while. Then he signed me. And that was really the point at which I learned that, okay, there's income in this, and I need to be a very good steward of it, because in songwriting, as I'm sure Steve would attest, you may have a really great year and you may have a really stinky year. So you have to be very careful that you are managing that well. I started to the point where the biggest thing for me was always insurance. Oh, don't get me started. So there was that. So I'd worked for the government like 2 days a week to simply for insurance. So there was that. But yeah, that was kind of when it all started. Once the publisher called me out of nowhere.
So cool. So what was your first cut?
First cut after I moved to Nashville was a song that I had written 7 years prior. And it's called In Time, On Time, Every Time. Irony being, until like the last 2 years, I was never in time, on time, or most every time. And I don't know officially who got it, but it was a regional artist. So I always tell people, do not ignore the regional artist. When you're like, oh no, I just wanted the big no, do not ignore those people, because you don't know where they're going to go. Mm-hmm. The regional artist was recording the song. A guy from a group was producing it. The guy who was producing it was with a group called Gold City. Jay took it back to Gold City. They recorded it, and that was their first #1 song in 11 years. My first song in Nashville, my first radio single, my first #1, my first Dove nomination. So to this day, I think I probably should have packed up and gone back home, 100%. Let's go. So that was my first baby.
Wow, that's so cool. And I love how it's all kind of linked together, but you could never have planned it, right? You're just giving your yes over. And I just love that. I love how that's connected.
Well, I'm curious, because I've already talked about your wonderful voice, if you have ever in your journey thought about, should I be an artist? Maybe? Should I do an artist project?
I wanted to. When I came to Nashville, I really, really wanted to sing. I did a showcase, and a few people showed up. It just wasn't a great thing. I wanted to do that so badly, until there came a point where you start to realize the difference between an artist and a writer. And there's definitely, in my observation, a difference. And I learned that I was not the quote unquote artist. And so once I got that, I was very happy to be me, sing on background. I do some demos, really happy to be where I am. But it was not until I realized it's a nuance. But it wasn't until I realized the difference, and that's how I knew I was supposed to be an artist.
So is there a cover of one of your songs that is done by an artist that you really love, or that exceeded your expectations?
So this song, I wrote it with Sue Smith, and we talked about Jesus. So be sure to look that up if it sounds interesting. But it was after her very first Write About Jesus in St. Louis. And I was staying with her, went back to her house. I was lying in bed thinking, I cannot even believe I get to have this life. I cannot even believe you're talking about dreaming or being able to map things out, or the tapestry thereof. I could not have mapped out. Even when I dream, I wouldn't have known to dream for this. And it was just like, that's why you have to do a trust, because I wouldn't even know what it was. And my thought was, God's really been good. So I wrote half the song, and I wanted to finish it with Sue because it was her baby. Got back, God's been good. Now listen, that's not a title. If I saw it today, I'd be like, yeah, God's been good, whatever. And that's just being honest. That little song has turned out to be probably the most recorded, appreciated song. And we wrote that 24 years ago. Still getting cut today. I can look up on YouTube, and it's stunning. And now This group now, Legacy 5 does it. There's Jim Brady. There's a guy who's a televangelist and no, an evangelist through North Carolina. There's so many people that I don't even know. But that song, I'm going to say it is, I just thought it was a little song for gratitude. I had no idea that we were all going to be that grateful, but I'm glad.
That's awesome.
I always encourage writers not to be too critical of their own work, because I had a similar experience. I wrote a song, a co-write with Michael Purrier one time, and I didn't really like the song. And so when I turned it into my publisher, I said, you know what, this isn't very good. Don't even demo this. There's nothing here. And Michael held a different view. He demoed it. It got cut, and it was a hit single. So I had to admit to my publisher, you know what? Don't listen to me anymore. I have no idea what I'm talking about.
Well, and you know what I love that I'm hearing too is like, I think a lot of people don't realize that some things that they're hearing on the radio were written 10 years ago. I mean, it's not like, all of a sudden there's this shelf life or like everything that you're hearing is 6 months old. It's a lot of stuff it's been from way back in a writer's history and it's finally getting released. So that's really great. Oh man, that's good. And you never know where a song's going to go. You don't know how God's going to use it. You don't know where he's going to take it. You just lay your hands open with it for sure.
Belinda, do you ever open up your royalty statement and look at the the places where your babies have gone?
Norway is the most shocking one to me. I don't know who in Norway is listening, but shout out to Norway. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's bizarre, but lovely, but bizarre.
Now, I want to make sure and have you share with people about the online songwriting festival that you're doing with Joel Lindsay.
We came together to do that. Just we were talking about co-writing before and how frightening it can be. So this is an opportunity for people who aren't really used to co-writing or people who would like to get better at co-writing. We hold this, we start on Thursday night, we end it on a Saturday night. It's all virtual, so you don't have to go anywhere. We put you together, probably going to be with people you don't know. We do one song on Friday and 2 songs on Saturday. Then we come together in the evenings to go over them. And it is just celebration. It's a festival of joy and excitement because people are like, oh my gosh, this was so much cooler than I thought. So it kind of, I wish I would have had something like that when I was starting. So that's why we decided to start this. And definitely if people want to know anything about that, come to my Facebook page. It's Belinda Smith Creative. Just DM me and I will put you first on the list to tell you when the next one is. But yeah, come along.
You know what? You mentioned something that I want to ask about. You said you do a song on Friday night and 2 songs on Saturday. So how long, this is a question I think young or new writers would have. How long should it take to write a song?
Well, I think Nashville and those of us who are way in the industry are looking to 3, on an average, 3 to 4 hours. For new people, you may get a chorus, you may get an idea and a chorus. Then you have the relationships that you can take on after that. We do Friday, and what we actually do, we make one person the quote unquote leader, and they're the ones who get that in charge. Or get that together. And the reason we do that on Fridays, we want to be cognizant that people work. So they get together and they can do that. Then they come and play what they have for us on Friday night. The person who's, each group has their own leader. And so they are in charge of getting themselves together. It's usually that we'll start about 10 a.m. on Saturday, and then the next song is 2. And then we get together about 7. Lots of people finish this time, or this last time that we did it, but that's not the goal. Our goal is to get used to the process and just have a really good time. So it's our songwriting festival, and there's no tears at the songwriting festival.
That's a beautiful thing, right? Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing with us today. This has been a great, informative conversation. And I love asking this question, if there was one thing or one piece of advice that you could give for a new writer, what would that be?
Doesn't that sound so small, but it's right. And I will say this, when people tell you to keep writing, that's not a throwaway phrase. That literally means you will get better the more you write. So that is exactly what I would say to a new writer. Right.
You're reminding me of a terrifying moment that I had with a publisher.
Yay.
When I was a young writer, a newbie, and I took some songs that I'd worked on for several months into to see this publisher. And when he listened to them, his first question was, "How often do you write?" And I could tell that he could see in my eyes that I was fishing for an answer. I didn't have it. I didn't say every day, or once a week. I had no answer for him. And so before I could even formulate the words, he said, "Writers write."
There it is.
So that's an affirmation of what you just said. That
Mhm.
and from the publishing side. So yeah, you get better. Anything you do, practice, you get better.
Absolutely. Great advice.
Well, I can't encourage you folks out there enough who care about writing, who care about creativity, to reach out to Belinda, get in touch with her at her Facebook page, because we've only scratched the surface of the wonderful things she could share with you. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for including me. I absolutely love your mission, your ministry, and I am so proud to support it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Well, we
you.
certainly appreciate you, and what a fun conversation this has been. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing a little bit of your life and your expertise with us as well. Share it with a friend and give us a positive review on iTunes.
And please visit our website, musicforthesoul.org, where you can stream or download every song in our catalog, including I Wasn't There. Read our lyrics, our healing music guide, our blog posts, and much more. Thank you so much for listening. God bless.
A man protects, a man provides, a man stands tall and does what's right. That's why I feel this guilt inside. I can't seem to look you in the eye. You needed me, our child did too, and it's painful to admit the truth. I wasn't there for you. I wasn't there for you. The words come slow, there's so much shame from this failure. I don't want a name, but I know that there's no way to heal till I speak out loud the things I feel. You needed me, our child did too, and it's painful to admit the truth. I wasn't there for you. I wasn't there for you. If I know then what I know now, we could have made it work somehow. You needed me, our child did too, and it's painful to admit the truth. I wasn't there for you. I wasn't there